So what is function notation? Function study wouldn't be complete unless we explored this notation. It is used everywhere, all the time. It was invented by a mathematician whose last name was Euler, and you'll hear much more about him when you study pre-calc. The symbol f parentheses x looks strange and scary, but it's actually just used to organize information. Once you know the tricks, it's actually very easy, and most kids like doing f of x problems. Would I lie? Function notation is written y equals f parentheses x, but you read it by saying y equals f of x. Very nice, I can write it, I can say it, but what does it mean, and how does it work? All function notation problems have 3 letters, and the purpose or job of each letter is determined by where it's placed in the function sentence. We know that f is the name of the equation because it is in front of the parentheses. We know that x is the variable in the formula because x appears inside of the parentheses. And we know that y is what we will call the answer to the problem because y is an introduction to f of x. So f of x equals, or y equals f of x equals, is the way to introduce or present a formula you plan to work with. The notation can't be used to find answers until you know what the formula is. So let's look at example 1. Suppose f of x is the formula 7x minus 5, and we want to find f of 3. In step 1, we write the given formula so that the reader knows its name and how it's constructed. In step 2, we show the number we're using by replacing the x over here with the 3 over here. Since 7 times 3 is 21 and take away 5 gives 16, we write that f of 3 is 16, meaning when x is equal to 3, then y is equal to 16. Function notation is very popular in math, and when you compare the 2 problems that follow, you'll see why. Example 2 is written without function notation. I tell you in A that I want y to equal 2x plus 3, and I ask you to find the value of y when x equals negative 4. Over here is the solution to the problem. I wrote y equals 2x plus 3 because you always write the equation you're using before you plug in. Then I showed you that I used x equals negative 4. Negative 8 plus 3 was negative 5, so in the answer column I told you that the y you asked me to find was negative 5. In B, I asked you to use y equals x squared minus 5, and I asked you to find y when x was equal to 3. So again, I wrote the formula I was going to use. I showed you that 3 replaced x, and then 9 take away 5 was 4, so in the answer column you asked me to find out what y was, and I showed that y was equal to 4. However, in the answer y equals 4, you have absolutely no information about what formula I used and what x I plugged in unless you look back at the work and refresh your memory. If the problem you're working on takes a bit of time, then by the time you reach y equals 4, you may have to look back quite a bit to discover which formula you used and which x you plugged in. Example 3, however, is the same problem written with function notation. I first tell you that f is 2x plus 3, and g is x squared minus 5. Each formula got a different name because the formulas are different. Now in A, I'm asking you to find the value of f of negative 4, and in B, g of 3. So I wrote f equals 2x plus 3. I plugged in negative 4 for x, and then actually plugged it into the formula, and wrote negative 5. And in the answer column, I told you that f of negative 4 was negative 5. In B, I reminded you that g of x was x squared minus 5, showed you that g of 3 substitutes 3 for x, calculated 9 take away 5 is 4, and wrote down in the answer column that g of 3 was equal to 4. Wow, that's easy? Of course it's easy, because I showed you that I used the g formula, and I showed you that I used x equals 3 by placing the 3 in the parentheses with the g, and I got y equals 4. Did you notice the extra letter I sneaked into example 3? The variable was not mentioned in the original problem. In the original problem, I just said g of x equals x squared minus 5, and then all of a sudden I wrote y equals 4 at the end. The variable y was not mentioned in the original problem because very often it's not. Sometimes the variable for the answer is given and sometimes it isn't. When the variable in the equation is x, the answer is usually y. F is the most popular name for a function because F is the first letter of function, and then after F comes G and H, and these are the most popular generic letters used. However, that's not always true. In our study of geometry, we learned that the surface area of a cube is found with the formula 6e squared, and the volume of a cube is found with using the formula e cubed. And that is when e is the length of the edge or the length of the side of the square used to construct your cube. Notice that because S was surface area, I named the surface area function S of E. And because V is the first letter in the word volume, I named the volume function V. When I calculate the surface area and volume using 7 centimeter edge, I'm able to show you that S of 7 is 294 centimeters squared, and V of 7 is 343 centimeters cubed. I use the letter S and the letter V for the answer because it represents the meaning of the answer. Also, for those of you who are in honors, you may want to consider the fact that even though 6e squared is a polynomial and ordinarily its domain would be all real numbers, because this is a geometry problem, the smallest e we can have is 0. And some people consider that even 0 is not allowed, and you'll see in many textbooks and for many teachers, e greater than 0 is the accepted answer. Again, once e is bigger than or equal to 0, then the range becomes s is bigger than or equal to 0. Why not all real numbers? We just discussed why. There are many reasons why you may still find f of x notation strange. The parentheses don't mean multiply. F of x is not f times x. It's f uses x. Y is often omitted when the problem is written. You have to know it's there. Y equals f of x is written with an order that is the opposite of common sense. Y is written first, but y being the answer happens last. X is written last, but you use x first. Function notation is a skill you need to practice in order to get good at it, And because I know you're all thinking more practice, please, here are 3 more examples. I defined f of x. I told you which x I wanted to use. I defined h of x and f of x again, and g of x. And I wrote examples that are very, very easy to organize using function notation. The answers are down here. Hopefully they're all correct. If they're not, I expect to hear from you sooner rather than later.